There was a time when British children rushed home not for the internet, but for the television schedule. Tea was still warm, the living room lights were low, and a familiar theme tune meant the day was almost complete. Some of those children's programs didn't just end, they quietly disappeared, erased by time, technology, and changing tastes. Today, many exist only as fragments in memory, or not at all. Before we begin, take a moment to like the video and subscribe if these forgotten moments still mean something to you. Because once we step inside these shows, you may realize how much of childhood vanished with them. 1. Play school, when a round door or a square door decided the morning. First broadcast on BBC Two in April 1964. Play school became a daily ritual for British preschool children for over 20 years. It aired at the same time each weekday, often just after breakfast, when the house was still quiet and parents were pulling cups from the table. The programme set was simple and unmistakable. Brightly coloured shapes, a large clock, and 3 famous doors, round, square, and arched. Which door would open today mattered deeply. Through it came short films of real British life. Children at the seaside in Blackpool, buses in London, farms in Devon. The presenters spoke calmly, never rushing, never raising their voices. Play school wasn't about excitement, it was about reassurance. It taught a generation that the world outside was friendly and understandable. In the late 1980s, shifting educational priorities and a move toward faster-paced children's television led to its quiet cancellation. No grand farewell. Just one morning, the doors stopped opening. 2. Bagpuss, the sleepy cloth cat that taught Britain to slow down. When Bagpuss first appeared on BBC One in 1974, it barely seemed like a television programme at all. Created by Oliver Postgate and Peter Firmin, it consisted of just 13 short episodes, each only 15 minutes long. The premise was gentle and odd. An old, pink and white cloth cat lay on a shelf in a forgotten shop, coming to life only to tell stories before falling back asleep. There was no tension, no urgency, no noise. Everything moved slowly. The characters spoke softly. The music felt handmade. For children growing up in busy households, Bagpuss felt like a pause in the day. Parents often watched along, finding comfort in its calm rhythms. Despite its popularity, the creators refused to make more episodes, believing repetition would spoil its magic. Today, its limited run only deepens the sense of loss. When Bagpuss ends, it doesn't fade out. It simply goes to sleep. 3. The Magic Roundabout, a strange little world children understood before adults did. Originally broadcast in 1965, The Magic Roundabout was unlike anything else on British television. Set around a small carousel in a park, it followed characters like Zebedee, Dougal, and Florence through short, surreal adventures. The dialogue often made little logical sense, yet children were completely absorbed by it. Adults, meanwhile, were baffled. The animation was simple stop motion, almost crude by modern standards, but the atmosphere was unmistakable. The narrator's voice became instantly recognizable across Britain. Many children watched it just before tea time, as the smell of dinner drifted in from the kitchen. Over time, the programme gained a reputation as something cleverer than it appeared, filled with wordplay and hidden humour. Its disappearance came gradually, replaced by newer formats and imported cartoons. But its peculiar charm remains uniquely British and deeply tied to a specific era of television experimentation. 4. Blue Peter, where British children learned to make things themselves. First airing in 1958, Blue Peter became one of the longest-running children's programs in the world. By the 1960s and 70s, it was essential after-school viewing across the UK. Filmed at BBC Television Centre in Shepherd's Bush. The programme mixed adventure, charity appeals, and famous makes, using items found in every British home. Washing up bottles, cereal boxes, sticky-backed plastic. Presenters spoke directly to the viewer, treating children with respect and expectation. It taught practical skills, but also responsibility. The Blue Peter badge became a badge of honour, granting free entry to zoos and museums nationwide. At its peak, millions tuned in daily. Over time, changes in children's media habits and declining viewership pushed the show into reduced slots. While it technically survives, the Blue Peter that once defined childhood has effectively disappeared. 5. Trumpton, the perfect town where everything was exactly as it should be. Broadcast in 1967, Trumpton depicted an idealized English town where everyone knew their role and nothing ever went seriously wrong. The animation was stop motion, with wooden figures moving deliberately through carefully constructed sets. Each episode followed the same comforting pattern, including the famous fire brigade roll call and bell. Children learned the names by heart. The town felt safe, orderly, and timeless. For many post-war British families, it represented stability and calm. Trumpton was part of a trilogy, alongside Camberwick Green and Chigley, but it is often remembered most fondly. Its disappearance wasn't dramatic. It simply became a relic of a slower Britain. As television shifted toward realism and speed, there was no longer space for a world where everything always worked out just fine. 6. Camberwick Green, the village where everyone knew everyone. First broadcast in 1966, Camberwick Green presented a small English village centred around its windmill and green. It felt older than television itself, as if it had always existed somewhere just out of sight. Each character had a defined role: the baker, the blacksmith, the shopkeeper. Children quickly learned their names and routines. The narration was calm, almost ceremonial, reinforcing the idea that life followed an order. Many viewers remember watching it in the late afternoon, while parents prepared tea and radios murmured in the background. The programme reflected a post-war ideal of community and familiarity, something already beginning to fade by the 1970s. As Britain changed, Camberwick Green began to feel like a memory rather than a mirror. Its disappearance was less about ratings and more about relevance. The village stayed the same, but the country moved on. 7. Rent-A-Ghost, ghosts that were more silly than scary. When Rent-A-Ghost arrived on BBC One in 1976, it brought a very British sense of humour to the supernatural. The premise was absurd: a group of ghosts living in a rented house, helping the living with their problems. The costumes were cheap, the sets wobbly, and the jokes often shamelessly silly. Yet, children adored it. It was broadcast in the early evening, often just before bedtime, making it feel slightly mischievous. The programme reflected a period when children's television was allowed to be strange, experimental, and unapologetically odd. Over its run, cast changes and tonal shifts diluted its charm. By the mid-1980s, changing tastes and production priorities led to its quiet end. Today, Rent-A-Ghost feels like a reminder of when British TV embraced harmless nonsense without irony. 8. The Tomorrow People, when children were trusted to save the future. First broadcast in 1973, The Tomorrow People stood apart from typical children's television. It was science fiction with ideas. The story followed young people who had evolved new abilities, forming a secret group dedicated to peace and understanding. Filmed largely in London locations, including the Underground, it gave British children a sense that adventure could exist just beyond everyday streets. The programme tackled themes of responsibility, morality, and non-violence, trusting its audience to keep up. Many viewers recall watching it wide-eyed, feeling spoken to rather than talked down to. As television budgets tightened and imported science fiction grew more popular, the show struggled to maintain its place. Its disappearance marked the end of an era when children's drama dared to take itself seriously. 9. Why Don't You? The show that told children to switch off. Why Don't You? First aired in 1973 and immediately stood out by doing something unthinkable today. It encouraged children to stop watching television. Broadcast in regional segments across the UK, it reflected local life and outdoor activity. The programme promoted cycling, crafts, and simple adventures, often filmed in recognisable British towns and parks. Its tone was friendly but firm, suggesting that real life was waiting outside the screen. For many children, it felt like permission to explore. Over time, as television became more central to daily life, the programme's philosophy felt outdated. By the 1990s, it no longer fit a media landscape built around constant viewing. Its disappearance marked a cultural shift, from television as a companion to television as a constant presence. 10. Jackanory, when a single voice and a book were enough. Beginning in 1965, Jackanory was one of the simplest programs the BBC ever broadcast. A single storyteller sat in a chair and read aloud. No animation, no sound effects, just words. Yet it captivated generations. Shown in the late afternoon, often during quiet moments at home, it introduced children to literature through calm, measured narration. Famous actors and writers took turns reading, lending the programme quiet authority. It trusted children to listen, imagine, and concentrate. As attention spans shortened and television grew louder, Jackanory slowly disappeared from schedules. Its end felt symbolic. When it left, something essential went with it. The idea that imagination didn't need visuals to survive. All of these programs were more than just children's television. They were shared moments, daily rituals, and quiet markers of growing up in Britain during a slower, more deliberate age. Together, they remind us of a time when screens didn't shout, stories weren't rushed, and imagination was allowed to breathe. If you'd like to continue exploring forgotten British brands, places, and everyday institutions from the 1950s to the 1980s, click through to our other videos and rediscover the parts of Britain time quietly left behind. And if these memories stirred something familiar, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own recollections in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Take care, and we'll see you again in the next video.